Hello everyone, today I would like to talk about the changes to the school curriculum that the government has introduced. 20th of February this year, 2020, the government have announced what it has in store for our school children as a result of NCEA review. Current science subjects, which are biology, physics, chemistry, and earth science, will be combined into one subject, which will be called science. I'm holding in my hand a document that is concerned with the changes to the science curriculum. This is quite a lengthy document. I don't know, let's have a look how many pages. It's got 43 pages. Okay, let's have a look what's inside. So this is the trial of the document of the proposed curriculum for the Level 1 Science as a generic subject, which combines the previous 4 science subjects. I believe the Ministry of Education has already redone this original document after the feedback they received. But I think it would be interesting to have a look from where this all started. They say that they will be reviewing and rebuilding all subject matrices, all achievement standards, all assessment resources, teaching and learning guides, and exemplars. The changes will be phased in over a 5-year period, so pretty much everyone who didn't reach yet year 11, year 12, year 13 will be affected. Let's have a look at the content of this document, how it is structured, and what we can find in it. I am now searching for achievement standards as they are the meat of this curriculum. There is a lot of sections about the rationale for this new curriculum, and I will be covering it in a separate video. Here they are: Achievement Standard 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4. So 4 achievement standards altogether. Strangely enough, in the table of contents they don't tell us what the topics are, so we will have to dig in and find them in the text of the document. And Achievement Standard 1.1. Use a range of investigative approaches in science. In activity number 1, we see that suggested possible content is sea level rise. And so if anyone wonders why the sea level rise is going to be a first topic for NCEA Level 1 Science, we can see that climate change is causing temperatures to rise, causing ocean temperatures to change and ice to melt. Curriculum concepts suggested for the standard are global warming, greenhouse effect, dwindling ice coverage in the Arctic and Antarctic, disappearing islands in the Pacific, effects of reduced ice on organisms, ecosystems, biodiversity, coastal erosion and effects on town planning, building, chemistry and physics of sea level rise, changes in ocean chemistry as a result of ice melt, effects of warming on ocean circulation. Though there is a lot to be said about how they suggest to study science for that particular topic, but we just scroll down quickly. And of course the links are provided to the resources on the internet, so no mistake made. There is also an alternative or additional activity number 2 called Energy on the Move, and we could see different aspects of energy transfer below. Now, looking at the key concepts and content of the curriculum, which tells us what actually are going to be taught here, we see particle, nature of matter, phase changes, home insulation, temperature regulation in animals, cooling systems in agricultural or domestic settings, the Earth temperature regulation, energy budget, heat transfer, and in the Earth and atmospheric circulation. In general, the selection of content topics seems to be quite haphazard. It combines classical science topics such as particle, nature of matter, or phase changes with some engineering applications such as home insulation. It seems like little thought had been given to this list. All of what is stated here could have been expressed through the proper scientific concepts, say heat transfer in general, and then given those particular applications as examples, say cooling systems. But this document creators did not seem to be bothered to go that far. They just lumped everything together and it looks very unscientific. I wonder how confusing it all will be for the kids in terms of understanding what science actually is. This section follows the same pattern with the approaches chosen in the learning resources provided. We are moving on to the achievement standard number 2, which is titled Explore a Real-World Issue and Devise a Local Science-Informed Action. The suggested content for Activity 1 in the standard is water quality, and it will include understanding about particles, ions, solutions, concentration, biodiversity, energy flow through ecosystems, earth systems. Further, we could see that it will be exclusively applied to the water quality. A couple of things here. Uses of water, why this is an issue, and identifying the range of stakeholders and their respective perspectives seem to be coming from some other subjects, I think. It doesn't seem to be related to science. Interestingly enough, the next activity within this achievement standard looks like health education, especially as we look a little bit further down at the possible aspects to consider when it comes to treatment approaches and options. And no doubt students should know about such a horrible disease as diabetes. But what a strange topic for a science curriculum, though. Here is one important thing I would like to draw attention to. This is still the achievement standard 1.2, and actually the title of it is Explore a Real-World Issue and Devise a Local Science-Informed Action. What? Why do we need to have a local action in the study of science? As we were taught at school, science explores how the universe is made and works. The beauty of science is that it has no bias. It explores objective laws of nature. And this is extremely strange for me that the kids will be required to take some local action within the subject area of science. Oh goodness, it looks like we are preparing a guerrilla troop of some sort to build students' action competence. That sounds great. Somehow this document reminds me of those subversive activities that the Russian revolutionaries were undertaking a few years ahead of the October Revolution, discreetly developing and distributing their leaflets that were meant to work up the action in among unsuspected masses. That was called a communist propaganda. The focus is on the issue with local significance, even if the issue itself is a global one. This is a heavy influence of this global world curriculum with a skew to the anthropogenic origins of the climate change, with the known objectives and with the known groups who stand behind it. This is very sad that it comes to this country in such a form, and this is disgusting. Here again, we're talking about taking an action. And in the next line, we're taking it even further, critiquing the appropriateness of the action taken. Again, this word seems to be a confirmation that it's not the science that is taught, but the ability to debate a particular issue on hand. Explanatory note number 2, that the real-world issue means an issue that affects the lives of learners. An issue is something of which people hold varying opinions and perspectives. This is interesting, of course, that this is valid in regards to issues, but I cannot understand what relation has got to actually studying science. Just a quick note here about the property of real science being an explanation of universal laws of how the world is created. There is no particular perspectives or some different kinds of knowledge. Science is a systematically organized body of knowledge on a particular subject that aims at discovering general truths and fundamental laws. Here we are explained what sort of actions school children are expected to undertake as a result of their learning science. I think political activism under disguise of science would be a much better title for this standard. Now we're coming to the third assessment standard, which is to describe attributes of science that contribute to the development of scientific ideas and processes. Without any shadow of doubt, learning about the development of science helps students to understand where the science ideas, models, and theories they learn came from. But it is somewhat strange to me that it is expected that students will explore the development of science ideas as they encounter them in their learning throughout the year only. Looking at the whole thing, I'm already in fear as to what science ideas, development of which will be offered for the kids to be studied in this module. Now, this is again looks like this curriculum is geared for, instead of developing of independent, objective thinkers, it is geared for developing a cognitive bias, develop biased approach to science, which responds to some social events around people. You can see that this achievement standard will include a production of structured report, which is based on resource material provided 3 weeks ahead of the due date. We can see that there is not much said about the intended content here. So the actual content might be a cat in the bag. And now we're coming up to the last achievement standard, which is to interpret scientific claims in publicly communicated information. This sounds like something belonging maybe to media studies or how to deal with the mainstream information course of sorts rather than science. But talking about interpreting claims in the media, I can agree that having a critical filter is an important life skill indeed, especially in a world where young people encounter increasing volumes of information and claims about science via a variety of media. I am afraid, though, that understanding the language, conventions, and processes of science is possible in any way other than learning the basics of science first, especially if the aim is to evaluate the robustness of science, whatever that might mean in this context. It is interesting that if the students would be allowed to study the full, comprehensive body of knowledge in science, as presented by the subjects proper, such as biology, chemistry, physics, and geography and geology, or you can call it earth science, that would indeed enable students to recognize when the science claims are trustworthy. Because how can one understand whether any claims are trustworthy or not without the prior knowledge of the subject? And the main thing should be, indeed, to teach the unbiased, unobscured by so-called issues, knowledge to understand if the media claims are trustworthy. Anyone needs to have a reference point from which to form an unbiased opinion, but it doesn't look like this curriculum at all aims at teaching any knowledge, as well as teaching forming unbiased opinions. In regards to the claim that students would be expected to select examples that demonstrate science, Matauranga Putayao, in pseudoscience, I can note that this is a tremendous pressure that this curriculum is aiming to put young minds under, requiring the level of critical thinking that not every adult can show. But at the same time, interestingly, I think the whole curriculum itself looks like a pseudoscience. So it will be a perfect example for the kids to understand what pseudoscience is about. And also talking about the trustworthiness strengthened by the scientific consensus, recently I came about a quote of the 11th century philosopher by the name of Abu Ali ibn al-Hazm, who said this about a true scientist. The seeker of the truth, a beautiful description of a scientist, does not place his faith in any mere consensus, however venerable and widespread. Instead, he subjects what he has learned to inquiry, inspection, and investigation. This document have a very vast preliminary part where the rationale for it is being explained, and I planned to have a look at it at this video, but I think it's going to be a talk for another day. I can only indicate that there is a lot to be said about it. This is an overview of the content of the new curriculum, and I would like to compare it with a couple of old study guides. got some books for New Zealand curriculum that has been at the moment cancelled, obviously. Not all of it level 1, but some of them are, and it should give us some idea of what we are giving up. So this is the NCEA level 1 for chemistry. This is indeed the basic fundamental facts about chemistry as a science, and we've got this nature of matter, atomic structure, periodic table, ionic bonding and formula, covalent bonding, chemical reactions and equations, particles collision theory, and rates of reactions. So all the basic stuff that every person really needs to know. Okay, well, this is an elective subject, and fine, we're moving on. Chemical investigation, technological application, and then we go another achievement: properties and uses of metals, non-metals and their compounds, acid bases again, structure and properties of carbon compounds, production and uses of carbon compounds, is combinations, decomposition reactions, precipitation, displacement reactions. I would say that, judging by the content, looks like it's a really good book. A lot of information on the subject. And I have to say that this is what kids should learn to build a strong foundation from which to move further into more complex questions. Okay, let's have a look at biology. And we've got level 1, this is another study guide. Again, investigations, cells, tissues and organs, genetics, human skeleton, muscular system, human digestive system, transport around the body, gas exchange, human excretory system. So it looks like this course is built pretty much all on human. We've got a little bit on microorganisms, the life cycle of flowering plants, plant nutrition, and New Zealand ecosystem. What's good about those textbooks, I think they present a coherent body of knowledge at the entry point. This is what really good about those books. I think it would be a good idea to actually collect all those books for each of the subjects and have a better look how the material is structured, and have a look at achievement standards across separate strands of science.